Hey everyone, we're going to go ahead and start. I want to make sure that folks are able to see me as well as hear me. My microphone is on, so hopefully if there are any issues, someone will notify me. I'm going to go ahead and just present the webinar PowerPoint. So also if you can't see that, please definitely send me a message via hashtag AskGMS on Twitter or Facebook, and I will be sure to adjust what I need to do with these webinars. So my name is Reba Monachin. I'm Senior Relationship Manager for the Gates Millennium Scholars Program. I work specifically with the alumni program, hence the alumni logo. And we have been doing these webinars for the past few months. We have done about 2 a month since the summertime. So if you haven't checked us out yet, please definitely do so. We are doing webinars on professional development, on various opportunities within specific areas, whether that be education, public health. We are doing some on money management or have done some on money management. So we just want you all to be aware that we're doing them, and hopefully you are taking advantage of this important resource. I'm also doing this today at a different time. So good afternoon to the East Coast folks, and good morning to the West Coast folks. We are trying this at a different time today to see if this is a better time for folks. Luckily, all of our webinars are recorded, and I will continue to do a Twitter town hall tonight between 8:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 9:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for those who have lasting questions or weren't able to watch at 2 p.m. So we're trying a few different things. So if you have any opinion on how this went compared to having our webinars at 7:00 Eastern Standard Time in the evening, please definitely let us know. Since this is the new time. So I'm going to go ahead and start. This webinar today will consist of 2 main topics. So this is really about how to prepare for your next leadership opportunity in the limited amount of time that we do have. So first, I'm going to talk to you about how to write an impactful personal statement or to talk through a specific application essay. This is a question I get often from scholars about how to really make their application stand out, how to make their material stand out for various leadership opportunities. And then same thing about how to prep for an interview. I feel like we've talked about resumes, we've talked about cover letters, and a lot of folks come to me and say they have gotten to the final round of an interview, but they weren't able to get through the interview portion because they said too much or they didn't prepare well. And we talk a lot about how to write a good resume and how to write a good cover letter, and that's probably something that you were able to get from your different universities. But we don't often talk about how to prepare for an interview, whether that is for a job search, for a fellowship, an internship, assistantship, for these different position opportunities, whether that's for law school or med school or other graduate school interviews. We hope that you can utilize this webinar to make this as general as possible so that you can prepare for a job posting or a job position, but as specific as possible if you are just applying for a volunteer opportunity or a different leadership type opportunity. So it's going to be a way for you to be intentional about whatever that is, not just go into it and hope that you do well. So I'm going to help you think through who you are, what you want, and why you are the best candidate for these various positions. So we're going to start with the written pieces first. So oftentimes when you have a leadership opportunity, you are asked to do either a personal statement or some sort of application essay. Now, a personal statement tends to be more general. There's not a specific question that they're asking you. It's either for law school, medical school, for a conference potentially, and we'll actually go through an example of a Gates conference application essay that sounds very much like a personal statement. So oftentimes these ask who you are, why you're applying for that post or that position, why you're qualified, and how you got there. And oftentimes they have a minimum word requirement or a maximum, but that's pretty much the general statement of how, general gist of what they're looking for in the statement. And so that can look a lot of different ways, but I'm going to help you think through what are those questions that they're trying to get to. And then the same thing with the application essays. There are usually specific questions that they're asking, but we'll talk through one of the application essays and how to dissect what that question is really asking. So we'll talk through the written pieces first, but one of the pieces that people don't often realize is that for each of these different positions and for any opportunity that you're applying to, you have to do your research. So whether that's a conference, whether that's a specific position or posting, whatever that may be, you have to do your research. And so the application essay that we'll talk through is ITM. So I'll give you a few examples of what that means. And then at the end of the day, it's what are they asking? And this is the thing that I see the most when reading applications or reading essays, and even with interviews. Answer the question. It is really important to not just write what you want to write and what you want to tell them, but really get down to what it is that they are asking and give them a written response. In this case, a written response to what that is. So let's talk about that. Did you answer the question? And as I mentioned, I'm going to go through an example of a question that we recently asked for something called the Institute on Teaching and Mentoring. So this is an essay question that says a statement of interest indicating why you are interested in attending the Institute and how it will positively impact your academic or professional goals. Now, when I received the essays, I was part of the application review for this conference. We got lots of really very touching essays, but it was much leaner, the pile, that we got essays that really answered the question. And so I'm going to go back to that first part of what I said, do your research. So ITM is a conference that's specifically for scholars as well as current alumni or folks that are working in or interested in continuing, interested in being in the professoriate. So first thing would be a statement of interest indicating why you are interested in attending the Institute. So why you're interested in attending, you have to know what the Institute is. So it's a good idea to go to their website, look at different statements from testimonials. Do you know what sessions you're interested in? What are the outcomes of the conference? What's the mission statement of the conference? Think about those pieces. And then the other two pieces are how it will positively impact both your academic and or professional goals. So not only are we talking about what's interesting about the Institute, but you're talking about yourself. So to be able to adequately answer that question, you have to know what your own academic and or professional goals are. So if that's something that you are not completely sure of, if that's something that you are still trying to determine, that's some soul searching that you'll have to do on your own as well. You'll really have to figure out what that looks like for you as an individual, for you to be able to answer exactly why you're interested. So when I read that essay, are your academic goals having to do with the professoriate? Are you interested in attending graduate school? Are you interested in taking classes or being part of sessions that pertain to your classes? That would be more academic. In terms of professional, what are your professional goals? What is your long-term goal? Are you trying to be a faculty member? Are you trying to be a researcher? Do you know what that means? And how have you not just said that you're interested in this, but what have you done to put your money where your mouth is, kind of thing? Are you actually in research classes right now? Are you doing a research assistantship? Are you applying to things like McNair or other opportunities that will allow you to do research and understand what it means to continue doing research even after you graduate? Do you know what your goals are and can you articulate them clearly? hopefully this is making sense. And hopefully you're able to do that so that when I read the essay as a reviewer, I'm able to clearly say, these were the 3 pieces of the question that I wanted to have answered, and this is their direct responses. Why are you attending the Institute? Because I really enjoyed the sessions, because I've heard a lot about it. Maybe you don't look at the essay or look at the website. Maybe you talk to someone who has been to that conference in the past, and they're able to give you the same information. How it positively impacts you is also something that I'm going to be looking for when I'm reviewing that essay. So hopefully that makes sense. So, so far I don't see any questions. So I'm going to continue on, and then I'm going to go ahead and try to do the questions at the end, so that we can get those answered all at once. Okay. But if you have any questions on the Ask GMS hashtag, I'll be checking those, as well as at the end of the webinar, I'll also be putting my contact information. So definitely let us know if you have some questions, if you watch this later, and it will be recorded on the YouTube channel. So if you watch it later and have other questions, please definitely let us know. Okay, the interview. So a lot of folks will call me and ask me questions about, I was able to get into the system, I was able to get an interview, or maybe you networked your way into an interview. I'll talk a little bit about that as well. And that would actually be another great webinar, just networking in general. But when you are going to an interview, hopefully you know about the interview about a week beforehand. Hopefully that's something that it's not just the day before, it's not like as quick, but a lot of companies nowadays are turning around really quickly. And so you may not have a week, but hopefully during the application process, you are applying to positions that are a good fit, that utilize your skills and experience, and you know who you're interviewing with. You know that this company shares your same values, shares your same goals, and you already have done some of this research and some of the logistics. So depending on a lot of different things, logistics may look different, research may look different. So whether you are interviewing somewhere local, whether you're interviewing somewhere where you have to travel to, how are you getting there? If you have to travel, are they paying for the cost to take a train or take a flight, or are you doing that? Where are you staying? It's important to figure out all those things. And even if you are local, where are you parking? How long will it take for you to be parking? I'm based out here in Washington, D.C., and parking itself will take an extra 15 minutes. And some places possibly longer if you can't find a good parking lot, and you may have to do street parking. So those are the types of things that logistically it's important to know what you are doing. The logistics of the interview are also really important. So it's important for you to get those details. Do you have a presentation? Is it a group interview? Is it an individual interview? These are all important questions and things that you can ask of the hiring manager when you are offered the interview. It's important for you to feel prepared so that you can be prepared for the interview. And they want that as well. They want to see the best of you, and they want to be able to see if you are a good fit. And you, at the same time, should also be utilizing this. And folks often forget this. You also need to see if they're a good fit. And this is your opportunity to do your research. Who are the people that you're interviewing with? Where are the offices located? What are the values of this company? And it's important for you to not just think about your own strengths and weaknesses and your own knowledge and skills and ability, but also think about the company's. And that's important to keep in mind as you are preparing for an interview. So this slide is specifically to encourage you not to start interview prepping the day before, especially if this is a position that you really feel like would be a good fit for you, where you feel like you could excel or is a really good career move. This is to encourage you all to start prepping and continue prepping. Even when you're in a job, it's important to keep those skills up, but start interview prep as soon as possible, as soon as you're able. Another thing that you should do before your interview, if you're thinking about the day before, is think about the interview questions. Think about how you're going to prepare. So a lot of employers nowadays, they will ask you about your own materials. They'll ask you behavioral questions, things that they didn't necessarily do 10, 15 years ago. A lot of times you hear about interviews asking about your strengths, your weaknesses, your knowledge. But a lot of questions nowadays are behavioral. And what I mean by behavioral, we could do a whole other webinar on behavioral-based questions. Behavioral questions try to get at what your leadership looks like in a specific situation. And so think about a few different examples of your past experiences where you demonstrated top behaviors or skills that employers are typically seeking. And you'll know what they're looking for if you do that research. So any last minute research should involve also not just looking at the company, but looking at that position description. What are the top things that they're looking for? There's always required skills in a position description. So are they looking for communication skills? Are they looking for presentation skills? Are they looking for research or a process-oriented person? Think of, and I would identify 6 to 8 examples of those different skills and characteristics that they're looking for. And think in terms of examples that will exploit your top selling points. You want to be able to show that you're not only a great employee, but you would be a great employee in this particular position. I would make about half your examples totally positive and really excel, really explain your accomplishments, your goals, different objectives. And then the other half, I would make situations that started out negatively, but ended either on a positive note or you made the best of that outcome. Employers know that you're not necessarily, well, no one is perfect, and you're not necessarily going to be in a position where you never had a conflict. Like, they want to know what you would do if you were in a conflict situation. So these are the types of things that you're most likely going to be thinking about the day before. Think of those examples and think of good ways to be able to articulate those examples. And the best way to do that is practice. Practice saying it out loud. Practice in front of a mirror. Record yourself on your phone, however you want to do that. Review not only who they are, but also practice and review your own materials, your own stories. So also, when I say review your own materials, it's really important to know everything on your resume. Your resume and your cover letter are your first impression to that employer. And so it's important that you know exactly what you put on those different things. And I actually have a funny story. When I was graduating from undergrad, I applied to law school. And during one of my interviews, I'm expecting the law school interviewer, to ask me about my law classes, about my work at the federal courts. I mean, all kinds of things that were applicable to law school. And he asked me about a pageant that I was in. And so it may not be the most direct link type of positions or things that you put on your resume that they ask you about. So it's important for you to know yourself and know those materials as well. And I say do not distract from your skills and abilities, because at the end of the day, you want them to focus on what you're saying, not what you look like, not what you're wearing. So it's really important to pick out your clothes. And if you need to go shopping for something that is more fitting, I know a lot of us gain weight, lose weight, we get taller. So it's really important to be able to be comfortable in whatever it is that you're wearing, and make sure that you are not distracting in any ways. So I even go into interviews not wearing patterned shirts. I make sure to wear a plain shirt, make sure to wear a jacket, and different companies are more strict or more stringent depending on their culture. So if it's the culture of that company that you wear a jacket, it's important that you do so. Men or women, if you're wearing too much cologne, it's not just about dress. If you're wearing too much perfume, that's distracting from your own abilities. And then the same thing with if you walk in and you don't have a firm handshake. It's important to have a firm handshake. Don't crush someone's hand, because I've also had that happen, but be comfortable in who you are. Be comfortable and as well as professional. And it's important to have those different things laid out, done the day before, so you're not scrambling the day of or a few hours before. And then the day before, it's really important to get your rest. I know that people say that all the time, especially before a big test or before any big opportunity, but you're not going to be at your best if you are not well rested, if you're not feeling good, and it's important that you take care of yourself as well. The day of the interview. So once again, going back to that success story that highlights the exact qualities that particular company is looking for in an employee that you're ready to talk about smoothly. All of those things matter, but if you're not there on time for the interview, that can leave an awful first impression. And so that is why I put be there early as the first bullet point. It is important to be punctual, and people take this in the professional world, in interview world, people take this very seriously. So I would give yourself at least 15 minutes ahead of time. Don't be there too early. So if you do get there early, maybe hang out at a cafe or something like that. But I typically give myself about 30 minutes ahead of time. And if I'm there too early, I'll hang out at a cafe, just make sure that I'm there, that I can see the building and be there on time. Have a strong handshake. I mentioned that a little bit earlier. That also leaves a really good first impression. Also, other pieces of body language, make sure you look people in the eye. Make sure that you are talking to everyone in the room if you're in a group interview, not just to one person. And a lot about interviewing is being confident. There are so many situations that if you are confident, you sound so much more intelligent, you sound so much more able than if you are not. You might be saying really wonderful things, but you will be able to build up your confidence if you continue to practice. And that's why I mentioned earlier, it is really important to practice. And then I'm meant to say this earlier, but for those of you who haven't heard of the STAR method, I would Google this. The STAR method is a really great way to be able to articulate whoever it is that you are, whoever or whatever examples that you want to give, and do it in an efficient manner. So by STAR, I mean situation or task that you're being asked about, the action you took, and then the result. What is it that happened from that action? So if an interview asks you a question about, tell me about a time where you had to do research with someone that was different from you. It's important that you're able to describe the situation, describe whatever the task is that you accomplished, and be able to be specific about what that event or situation is. Don't give a generalized description of what you've done in the past. It's always good to be able to leave something tangible, and people remember that. Be able to give enough detail for the interviewer to understand and to know that the situation is exactly what is happening in that situation. The situation can be from a previous job, from a volunteer experience, from any relevant event. So don't feel like you're limited to job experiences if you're applying for a job, or research experiences, unless it's asking specifically for research. It's important to vary those experiences. And those are the experiences I mentioned earlier. Think of 6 or 8 examples and make them varied examples. Some should be about conflict. Some should be about diversity, how you've worked with diverse people. Some should be about your strengths and weaknesses. So make sure that you're doing a lot of your own soul searching and your own research to think of those different examples. The A in STAR stands for the action you took. So it's important to describe that action and be sure to keep the focus on you. Even if you're discussing a group project or effort, describe what you did, not the efforts of the team. They're asking specifically about you. And so don't tell them what you might do, tell them what you actually did. And then this is the part that is often forgotten. The R is for results. What are the results that you achieved and what exactly happened? And the positive examples I was talking about earlier, did you increase sales? Were you able to find something that others hadn't found before? Were you able to improve a process or accomplish another result that you hadn't had before? So with the varied examples, using some fairly recent examples, using some examples from different positions, they are going to have a better idea of who you are and what you're doing, and whether you would be a good fit for that position. And then the last thing is have questions for them. Even if you were able to find this position through a network, through other folks, or like you had an idea of what the position is before going into it, it's important to ask important questions. Ask about the culture, ask about the future of the organization, ask about what it is that like makes them tick. You know, all these questions are important to know before you go into any work culture, because don't forget, you are interviewing them as much as they are interviewing you, especially when it comes to like a job function. If it's a fellowship, assistantship, internship, those are also types of job functions. And then if it's a school, like law school or med school, there are different cultures within different schools. It's also a really good idea in your research to pull out questions. So some of those questions may be based off of, and they should be, based off of what you've learned about the school from your research. And that will also allow you to show that you care and you've been doing your research. So after the interview, there are varied opinions on whether or not you need to send a thank you note. For some employers, they just toss them out. Honestly, some folks may not look at a thank you note if you write it. But for others, it could really leave an impression. And I think the most important thing about thank you notes is that whether you do it on paper, whether it's a handmade note, whether it's an email, the most important piece is to follow up. Following up shows initiative. It shows that you care. And once again, it shows that you want whatever that leadership position is. And that you're not just applying to every fellowship, every job, every opportunity half-heartedly. So what do you put in a thank you note is another question I often get asked, which is why I put this slide up. So you should always address that individual person. So if you have a group interview, it's a good idea to send individual thank you notes rather than to the group. If you don't have everyone's information, it's a good idea to either get the information or send that note asking that your point of contact pass it on. And it's important to make the thank you note relevant. You're not just saying thank you just to say thank you. You are leaving a lasting impression. So what stood out to you? How did this interview, this opportunity show you that it's confirmed your interest? What did you learn and what would you bring now that you have been through this process? And then lastly, if they aren't able to contact you, if it was one of the group interviewees, maybe something about how they can contact you. I've also given an example of what a thank you note might look like without actually putting in your individual experiences. So it was a pleasure meeting you at the Gates Millennium Scholars Program. I truly appreciated the candor by which you spoke to me about the program. I truly appreciated the opportunity to interview with you. I truly appreciated the culture of your organization, whatever that might be. What stood out to you? What were the things that confirmed your interest? And then I'm certain that I would fit the collaborative culture that was expressed, and I believe that my background in student affairs, my X, Y, and Z would go far there. What is it about me now that would make me a great candidate for this position? Thank you again for your time and consideration. I look forward to hearing from you. So this is an example of what it might look like. Another great way to figure out what to write is Google it. There are so many examples of thank you notes out there that you can utilize that would help you to articulate exactly what it is that you're trying to say. Show that you listen and show that this confirmed your interest. Those are the main points. So final thoughts. So when you're applying for leadership positions, it is really important to know who you are, know yourself. So a lot of times we go into these positions just hoping to get something, hoping to get a scholarship, hoping to get a fellowship, hoping to get whatever that position is. But it's really important to know who you are and know your own philosophy, know why you want to do this, know what it is that you're trying to gain, as well as what you could bring to the organization. And that should be your mindset as you go through these leadership opportunities. The other big thing is, with that, I kept saying throughout the presentation, have you research the position, get on the website, talk to your contacts, figure out what it is about them that makes them a good fit as well. Secondly, I cannot emphasize this enough. It is really important to practice. So whether it is practicing your writing or practicing actual presentation skills and presenting to an individual, especially in a stressful situation, you will not be able to be your best if you're not able to articulate it when it's just you in the mirror. If you are going to an interview, it's important to practice that. Practice those different 6 to 8 examples or situations that I mentioned. If you're writing and you're in a situation where you have to write an application essay, personal statement, it's important to practice your writing, first of all. We live in a day and age where things are written in 140 characters. That does not an essay make. And so it's really important to practice your writing skills as well. So, I mean, it doesn't have to be hard. Write for 15 minutes a day about anything and everything, and then read it. And that, my high school teacher once told me, that can help to improve your writing immensely. And so it's also a really good thing to do for stress. But with all of these different things, it's going to help build your confidence. It's going to help make you a better writer, make you a better presenter, and thus make you more confident in all of those different areas. One thing I also didn't mention is with the personal statements, with essays, it's important to get other people that you trust to read those materials, to read and help you to see different aspects that you may be missing of yourself. So along with practice, make sure that you are using your network. And I read somewhere with a lot of these leadership opportunities, people are often talking about how important it is to network. And a lot of people don't like networking because they don't feel like it's genuine. They don't like to feel like they're asking for something. But this is a reality that we all need to be aware of. Half of jobs that people receive are never posted. It's not cheating. It's the science of how information speaks and how information spreads. So half of jobs are never even available to those outside of that person's network. So it's really important to work your networks and know that this isn't a sleazy process. This is not something that has to be hard or feel uncomfortable. Networking is something that should be reciprocal. So if I'm an employer, if I'm a hiring manager and I'm able to bring in an awesome candidate, a very qualified candidate, that looks good on me, not only on that person and on that individual. So it's important not to just be passing out your business cards, but networking is something that I'm sure we'll continue to talk about further on through these webinar series. So if I missed anything, if there was anything you wanted me to add, definitely hashtag me at AskGMS on Twitter. You can do that either now or later tonight at 8 p.m. Up until 9 p.m. I will be online until then. And then if you have any other questions about this topic, any specific questions, feel free to send that over to me. And if you don't want to ask them on the World Wide Web, you can also email me. You can reach me at alumni@gmsp.org, and I will be sure to get back to you about this or any other ways to get involved with the Alumni Association. So I will leave you with that. And if there are any questions, make sure to contact me. Thanks, scholars.